Hi guys, hi, how's it going? How you doing today? Hopefully today finds you well. Today I am doing a repurchase or not, which is something that I was doing quite a bit actually, like once every 6 weeks or so on my channel. Last year, I was inspired to do this by many a YouTuber. The one that I saw doing it the most was Emily from Emily's Makeup Bag. I love doing these because I look back in my makeup collection, and if I were to see them today, if they were to show up on the makeup scene, would I still repurchase them? Now, I definitely throw a little bit of a knowing what I know now kind of mindset into them, but for the most part, that is what it is all about, and I hope that you guys are here for it. For those of you new here, my name is Donna. I'm a lover of all things high-end colorful beauty and self-care. I also work as a field leader for Ulta Beauty, so I get a lot of education in my position and like to bring you that education here. Ultimately, though, I'm just out here talking about makeup because I like to talk about makeup. And I'm assuming if you're here, you probably also like to talk about makeup or listen to chatter about makeup, whatever it is that brought you here. I'm ever so grateful. And I hope that you'll want to subscribe before you go. With that said, let's just talk about some makeup, shall we? All right, so I kind of alluded to it in the intro. I don't think I did a really good job of introducing what we're doing today, but this is repurchase or not. So if these were to show up on the makeup scene today, would I purchase them? Would I be drawn to them or no? I do have a little bit of element of what I know now. Would that impact it in this version of it on my platform? I know that some YouTube creators don't have that element, but I do because I know about these palettes, and that's what draws the attention, right, to them or no, for me. So I have 10 palettes here that are part of the palettes that are part of my collection that were randomly picked. I go through my inventory and I randomize 10 numbers. I pull those palettes out based on the numbers that I utilize. I know I've never done that on camera, but that is how I do it unless that palette has already been picked. And then I just move on to either the next one down or the one immediately above it, if that is the case. With that said, these aren't typically super long videos. They're just like more rambly, more chatty. So let's walk through this real quick. So the first one I have is this one, and that is the Makeup Revolution or Revolution Beauty Ultimate Nudes palette, and I have the colorway of medium, and this actually wasn't purchased by me in the first place. This is what the palette looks like. It is truly a beautiful palette. This was a gratis palette to me. I, like I said, work for Ulta Beauty, so I do get a lot of makeup, honestly, in gratis. Would I purchase this on my own? Probably not, if I'm honest with you. It's just a colorway that I don't necessarily need in my collection. I have it over and over and over again in my collection, but also I am not the biggest fan of Makeup Revolution. If you've been following me for any amount of time, you know that almost everything I pick up from Makeup Revolution, I've said I'm pissed off at myself for picking up because it is quite literally the worst of the worst, in my humble opinion, as far as like formulation goes. But something happened to them in the last year in that I have utilized a couple of Makeup Revolution products in the last year that I really, really like. One being their cream bronzer and one being this. Like, I really do love this palette. Would I go out of my way to pick it up if it were brand new on the market today? No. Am I happy to still have it in my collection? Yes. Will I get use out of it? Yes. I do think it's a wonderful formulation. And if you're balling on a budget, this would be a good option for you for a lot of the Huda Beauty Obsessions palettes, which is what I think that this was supposed to dupe. Next, I have Lime Crime Venus Immortalis, and this palette, you guys, such an amazing palette in that this glows in the dark. It is the coolest thing simply because it glows in the dark. The packaging in and of itself, like, yes. Yes, all things packaging. This was my first, like, glam light Chucky palette, if you will, with kind of a lot of the lighter tones that the glam light Chucky palette doesn't have. I actually quite love this palette. This is one of the reasons why I actually fell in love with Lime Crime as a formulation and would repurchase this in a heartbeat. Yeah, I think that it's just pretty. It's my first version of the grungy, like grayscale, black and white kind of look. I think after I picked this up, I picked up the Natasha Denona Xenon palette, like the mini Natasha Denona Xenon palette. I also picked up the Chucky Glam Light after that. I think if this had not paved the way for those two palettes, I probably wouldn't have picked up those two palettes. But Lime Crime is kind of expensive, if I'm honest with you. That little tiny 8-pan palette, so bulky, like so bulky. I wish that they would make these things in smaller palettes, but I understand that this is part of their aesthetic. Really cool packaging. 8 shadows for like $40 or $50 for an 8-pan eyeshadow palette. I mean, they're pretty spendy. Not any more spendy than I would say Natasha Denona or maybe Huda. And, you know, to some extent, I do like these better than like the Obsessions palettes that have 9 pans of eyeshadow in them. But they're not a better formula than I would say Huda or like the big Huda palettes or Natasha Denona. So are they worth it? Probably not. But I would definitely pick that one up again. The next one I have is this, and this is the Flower Beauty Jungle Lights palette. And, you know, as much as I love Drew Barrymore and love that I've got some, you know, eyeshadows and products from her brand, and as much as I love these because they're so beautiful, brilliant, and impactful on an eye look, I wouldn't pick this up again. Number one, I would look at this palette and go, I need mattes. Like, this isn't a one and done eyeshadow palette for me. And while I don't necessarily need a one and done eyeshadow palette, I would want an eyeshadow palette that has mattes in it. These days, I almost never buy an eyeshadow palette that has anything less than a 50-50 matte to shimmer ratio in it. So I wouldn't pick this up for those reasons. Knowing what I know now about this palette, I also know that this is not good for any kind of like hoodedness in your eyes. It's maybe not good for any kind of like texture that you have on your eyes. And as a matter of fact, this kind of creates texture where there is none, and where there is, it exacerbates it so much. These are so thick as far as the formulation goes. They remind me of a thicker version of Juvia's Place shadows, and Juvia's Place shadows are really thick. So no, I would not pick that one up again. And also, for a drugstore brand, Flower Beauty was always kind of expensive. These are $19.99 or 20-something dollars for 6 eyeshadows. And the pans, as big as they look, are not as big as they appear. Like, these are about twice the size of like a ColourPop eyeshadow pan. So yes, they are big, but they're really thin. So I wouldn't pick those back up. The next one I have is the Natasha Denona Love palette. And the Natasha Denona Love palette is a palette that came out for Valentine's Day a few years ago at this point. I think it was like 4 years ago at this point, I want to say. The packaging is beautiful. It does have the holes on the back so you can poke out the shadows and move around the shadows as much as you want to. This is what the color story is. Knowing what I know about myself, absolutely I would pick this up again because I love this kind of color story. Like, I love reds and purples and corals and oranges on my eyes. And this has those reds, those purples, those kind of corally pinks in it. What I will say is this isn't my favorite Natasha Denona eyeshadow palette. Even though that is the case, I would still pick it up because it's Natasha Denona. But without even that being a part of it, like, I love this color story. So yes, it would definitely be on my list of going to pick it up again. But this color is probably the worst purple I've ever had in my collection. Like I can't stand this purple. And I do think that this one is one of her like creamed powder formulas before it was actually really, really good. Not the best purples in this palette, but also really, really great palette overall. So I would definitely pick that one back up. The next one I have is ABH Subculture. And you know, call me crazy, I would pick this up again. This is just my childhood rebel, grungy self's epitome of perfection. This palette, as much as everybody hated this palette, I did not have any problems with this palette, except for this shade here, which is not amazing. And honestly, this one here is also not amazing. They get like hard pan really, really easy, and they're super hard to get any kind of color payoff. I mean, I was rubbing the heck out of this guy, and you can't get any kind of like real color payoff. I mean, that's 3 swipes in. The color payoff is not great on either one of these. I mean, that's the white called Cube. Like first swipe, second swipe. I mean, it's just awful. It's awful, right? Third swipe. And I do understand that this is a very old palette, but they have always performed that way. The rest of them are just amazing. And like I said, this is my previous life, my grungy girl self, epitome of perfection as far as color story goes. And I remember when they launched this palette, this is the first palette that I set an alarm on my phone for so that I remembered to pick it up when it launched. I was so excited for that palette. And I still feel some level of that excitement every time I pick up that palette and go to use it in an eye look. That is quickly taken over by the fact that it pisses me off because the colors don't blend well, they don't layer well, they don't any of that. But then I remember that and make an eye look work that works just by patting the eyeshadow. Like, it is a tricky palette to deal with, don't get me wrong, but in the spirit of this video, I would definitely pick this palette up again, minus the know what I know now. The next one I have is the Aceb Flare palette. And this one also is one of those palettes that is the perfect epitome of my grunge girl life. I really do feel like this is grungy summer vibe, whereas this is grungy like fall vibe. So I definitely would pick this up again. I think I purchased it at FabFitFun. It is their older formulation. But I have to be honest with you, I don't have any problems with their older formulations. So I know that they redid the formula, and I know that their formula isn't 100% in these palettes. I don't have any of the newer palettes to compare to though, but I have 5 of their older formulation, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah, I have 5 of their older formulation, and I love it. And I love this palette. This is, like I said, grunge girl summer for me, and I would definitely pick it back up. This color here, chef's kiss. It is so great for inner corner. It's my favorite. The next one I have here is Patrick Ta, and this one is like a lights, camera, action nightmare. This one is the Major Dimension 2 eyeshadow palette. I don't have his first one. And, you know, it pains me to say this because this is a really beautiful eyeshadow palette with 2 creams here, the 5 shimmers, 5 mattes, really great, beautiful gradient. Like, I don't know. I think I'd want to pick it up because it's right up my alley as far as color stories go. Like, when I think through the lens of this palette, I would probably pick up this one versus this one, obviously. But also, I have these shades over and over and over again in my collection. This came out when I was still in the thought process that I didn't have enough. And now looking at my collection, I'm like, I am inundated with these shades. I do think this one's a hard one. I don't think that I'd pick this up. listen, I do think that this is a beautiful palette. But with all of the hubbub going on about, you know, Patrick Ta's palettes growing mold, I just inspected mine. Mine's perfectly fine. With all of that hubbub going around and the fact that this is the monochrome moment that it is, and the fact that this is all warm shadows and I have a ton of those, I don't think that I'd pick this up again. Knowing what is out there in the beauty sphere about this brand, I don't think that I'd pick this up. As a matter of fact, he has the matte one, the all matte version that just came out, and I wanted it but didn't pick it up because there's a lot going on with Patrick Ta's brand right now, and people are, you know, kind of disappointed with this brand. So I'm more than likely going to pick up the Danessa Myricks one versus Patrick Ta's. And it's so expensive. It really is. I don't know that I think that this is worthy of the price point that it carries. Number one. Number two, with all of the, you know, controversies about his palettes, I just don't think I'd pick it up if it were to launch today. Knowing what I know, it is a beautiful palette. The shimmers are beautiful. The mattes are pristine. I love the formula of Patrick Ta's mattes. His shimmers kind of irritate my eyes a little bit because they're more PC, but they are stunning. I just don't think that I'd pick this up again. And it's the only Patrick Ta in my collection. And I think that if I was so blown away by his brand in a nutshell, I probably at this point would have more. The next one I have is the Adept Ninhydrin palette. And you know what, you guys? Here's the true tea. Yes, 100 times yes. Yes, 100 times. Repurchase or not? Absolutely. I mean, I just bought it. I just bought it not that long ago, to be honest. So I think I bought it for myself for my birthday in September. So, I mean, my mind about it hasn't changed much in the last, 6 months. So there's that. This irritates my eyes. This irritates my eyes so dang much. But the plain Jane one doesn't. So I don't know what the difference is between the formulations, but my God, this is pretty. And Adept has some really beautiful formulas. They are really expensive, but I want more, and I want more because of my experiences with this palette and the plain Jane palette, regardless of how much this irritates my eyes. They're still just so pretty when they're on a lid. They're just beautiful shadows. And the fact that they're just kind of PC and creamy and beautiful all at the same time, I look at that palette and I'm like, I want to wear it. I know what it does to my eyes, but I just don't care. I kept it because I just don't care what it does to my eyes. So I would definitely repurchase it. Then I have Blend Bunny Lure. Listen, this is a beautiful palette. This is one of my favorites from the 3 that I own from Blend Bunny. My favorite is the Dollhouse one, I think, just because it's more everyday and it has 2 rows of shimmers versus just one. But look at the color story. This is so pretty. This is so right up my alley. So right up my alley. This is my color palette of my dreams, to be honest. Like these really like totally neutral row here, so you can get an everyday eye look out of it if you want to, but then look at the greens are just beautiful. The purples are beautiful. These 2 rows of like blues, like those couldn't have been better shades of blue. This is like a tealy blue and this is like a cobalt blue. I mean, they really represented blue well in this palette. And like this like fuchsia row, oh my God. Like a pink without it being a pink. Like, yes, please. Like everything about this palette screams yes. I would definitely repurchase this. I am so happy that I did purchase it because I know that Blend Bunny has been getting rid of some of their, you know, palettes lately. And if this one went away for good forever and I had not picked it up, it reminds me of The FOMO I think I would feel over it reminds me of the FOMO I know I feel for the Beauty Bay spell book palette, Mind Spell palette, Spell Works palette, whatever that one is, Magic Spell, whatever that palette is, that I was going to pick up and then I never flippin' did, and now I have forever FOMO about it. So I feel like I would feel the same way about this palette if it went away and I had never picked it up, knowing that I wanted to pick it up. So I think that's why I have this like, if you want it, you better pick it up now because it'll go away, and it'll go away soon. That dang Beauty Bay palette has ruined me for life, but that is a yes. Yes, I would pick that up. Last but not least, we have Be Perfect Carnival 3. This is the Love Tahiti palette. They're collaboration palettes with Stacey Marie MUA. And listen, am I sorry I picked up this palette? Nope. Am I sorry I have this palette? Nope. Would I pick this palette up again? I don't know that I would. Biggest reason why? It's just so big. It's just so big. And I just don't purchase palettes this big anymore. That said, this has literally everything you could desire in an eyeshadow palette, from a really, really neutral to a really, really blue-green to a really, really purple pink. I don't think that there is a color in here that I wanted for when I was doing my palette roulette of this video. I think I take that back. There was one shadow that I think is missing from here, and that is a matte white. That is it. Like, I think that this is such a beautiful eyeshadow palette. And again, not sorry I have it. Not sorry I spent the money on it. It was actually relatively cheap. Not sorry that I have this palette, but oh my God, I would probably not purchase it again because it's literally been in my collection now for years. I've palette rouletted it and then not picked it up at all. But the same can be said for many a palette in my collection, to be honest. So of the 10 palettes that I pulled into this repurchase or not, I have 6 that I absolutely would repurchase regardless of what I know now versus what I didn't know when I picked it up, and 4 that I would not repurchase. So what are you guys' thoughts? I mean, I think I'm actually kind of shocked at myself for the Patrick Ta one. And I'm actually kind of shocked at myself for this one because I really, truly do love this palette. But they're just not palettes that if I saw them today, I would pick up. This one doesn't surprise me. It was a gratis item in the first place. This one, I remember when I reviewed this saying how much I did not love these shimmers. I then went out and purchased Desert Lights. Why? I think these are, I think this is about exactly right because I can't see me without these palettes ever. Like, these will likely never leave my collection, whereas I could see this one leaving. I could see this one leaving. These two, a little bit of a stretch because I do enjoy them, but I could definitely see these leaving my collection. What are your thoughts? Please let me know down in the comment section. Don't forget to hit a girl up. I really do enjoy our conversations down there. So please give me a comment down there. Let me know how you feel, or give me a big purple heart if you made it all the way through but have nothing to say. That's okay too. It really does help our channels out here, you guys. It shows engagement, and engagement is the name of the game. So I hope that you guys enjoyed the video. I hope that you and yours are well. I hope that you are all safe and healthy and getting along as best you can. I hope that you are all loving each other, but loving each other from afar. And until next time, bye friends.